Hey guys, today we stand at the edge of something quietly enormous. You, speaking into the space between what you've been surviving and what you were meant to shape, and the universe, already listening, waiting for a clear signal. Picture it, a life where doors open, not because you begged harder, but because you asked with presence, where what you want stops feeling distant and begins to feel like a conversation you're having with possibility. Reality check. Every day you wait to ask clearly. Opportunities slip like water through unformed hands, and you pretend it's timing, when the truth is your signal was fuzzy. That's the cost. That's the part most people never hear spoken aloud. You're about to go on a 13-step journey. I'm not giving you a to-do list you skim and forget. I'm handing you a roadmap and asking for a handshake with yourself. First, you feel the hidden power of asking, what it really does inside and around you. Then you see what broken asking looks like. The stall, the false starts, the self-blame, and you get the reset. From there, you sharpen intention so your words aren't leaking energy, clear internal noise so your vibration actually matches what you claim, and learn to act as if the outcome is already part of your identity. You'll pull in the universe's full focus through direct, confident language, then deepen your requests with heart, vision, and creative daring. You'll discover the reciprocal flow of giving and receiving, how to keep the conversation alive with persistent asking, what to do when answers delay, how your emotional state amplifies everything, and finally, how to integrate all of it so asking isn't something you do, it's who you are. That's the path. Now commit. You show up. You ask honestly. You adjust without shame. And you keep the conversation going even through silence. Here's the immediate shift. Don't wait for perfect phrasing. Say it out loud, right now. Pick something you've been circling, but never named fully. It can be small. Hold it in your mind and speak. I'm ready to attract clarity and aligned opportunity around X. Replace X with one thing: more focused work time, a meaningful connection, consistent income, emotional ease, whatever's been stuck in someday. Say it again. Slower. I'm ready to attract clarity and aligned opportunity around X. Pause. Feel the word ready. That's the handshake. That's you initiating. That's asking instead of hoping. If that felt weird, that's normal. The universe hasn't had a consistent conversation from you in a while. If it felt like a small relief, you just moved. You've altered your internal map by speaking it. Now, why this matters more than you realize. You've probably been treating asking like a wish wrapped in vague language. Maybe someday I'll get traction. I want more if it doesn't require me to change too much. I hope something shows up. That's passive energy. It keeps the field fuzzy, and the universe mirrors fuzziness with more fog, delayed results, mismatched opportunities, confusion that feels like stagnation. When you ask cleanly, you're saying, I'm choosing direction, I'm aligning, I'm available. It's not about making the universe do work. It's about creating the conditions so the right intelligence, call it flow, call it momentum, call it the responsive field, can coordinate with your clarity. Alignment is the signal. Asking is how you tune into it. So here's the deeper promise. When you speak clearly, something inside you shifts first, your attention, which was previously scattered across noise and shoulds, focuses. Your subconscious begins to scan for clues and opportunities that match the request instead of defaulting to old survival patterns. your decisions, sometimes silently. Start bending toward what you asked for, not because you forced them, but because your internal compass updated. That internal shift then ripples outward. The field around you rearranges, not magically from nowhere, but because you've engaged it with intention. That's the hidden power of asking. It's both the adjustment of your internal frequency and the invitation to intelligent feedback. Let me give you a sharper frame. Asking isn't a one-time sentence you toss into the void and hope for a miracle. It's the first line of a conversation. You ask, the field replies with a nudge, a connection, a subtle insight. You refine. You ask again with updated awareness. That iterative loop is where real momentum lives. When you treat asking as a passive, maybe someday, you get the equivalent of a half-changed station on a radio. Static, vague sound, no clear signal. When you ask with presence, you tune the dial. You know it's working because the responses stop feeling random and start feeling like breadcrumbs leading you forward. You begin to recognize pattern, not because you invented it, but because your lens is sharper. Here's another cost to feel. By letting your asking stay blurry, you've been delaying alignment with what you value. The longer you drape your desires in I wish language, the more you let them regress into background cravings that feel like noise instead of priorities that call for action. That's exhaustion disguised as contentment. That's grinding without direction. When you ask, you give yourself permission to treat your dreams as real enough to name and to reorder your choices around them. That's not selfish. It's clarity. That's the pivot from survival to creation. So the contract you made with yourself isn't complicated. You say, I will ask with intention. I will feel into my words. I will follow the response with aligned action. I will reflect when the signal doesn't land and adjust, not punish. That's enough to start. The rest is refinement. Leave this part knowing. Asking is your activation. It's the moment you stop hoping from the sidelines and start directing with presence, a conversation with possibility. You don't need to have the whole path mapped. You only need to name one real desire, speak it clearly, and watch how the first small responses feed into more. So say it again. I'm ready to attract clarity and aligned opportunity around X. Keep X specific. Keep the tone confident. You've begun. Micro recap. You commit to the journey. Speak a clear ask out loud and shift from passive wishing into active alignment, starting the conversation that changes both your internal map and how the field responds. You just spoke? That simple act, named clear, present, already shifted something. Now let's go deeper into why that matters and how the hidden power in asking actually works. Most people treat asking like whispering a wish into a void and then waiting, confused when nothing answers. That's because they never turn the wish into a signal. Asking properly flips you from passive, maybe someday energy, into a purposeful alignment that the field can actually hear and respond to. Here's a quick experiment. Do it with me. Right now, say out loud, I choose to receive aligned opportunity around X. Replace X with the same thing you said before, or refine it 1 degree sharper. Say it again, but this time add, I'm ready to receive it, and I'm acting from that readiness. Pause. Feel the subtle difference between that and I hope something changes. The first is a posture. The second is a polite suggestion to the universe. That's the hidden power. Your voice, your wording, your internal commitment become a calibrated frequency. You don't need to chant. You need to speak clearly with presence and then move where that presence points. Let me make it plain. Asking is not begging. It's not a wish tossed like a coin into a fountain with the half-hearted thought, maybe this will work. Asking is a deliberate initiation. It's you updating your internal coordinate system and announcing it to the responsive intelligence around you. When you ask, you do two parallel things. You sharpen your internal signal, your thoughts, your emotions, your attention, and you invite external feedback. That dual action is the hidden engine. Maybe you've heard the word vibration and rolled your eyes because it felt vague, overused, or new agey. Strip it of fluff. Vibration is the composite of what you feel, believe, expect, and pay attention to. It's your default operating tone. When your internal state is scattered, anxiety, doubt, but mixed messages about worthiness, your ask is garbled. The field hears the static. When you clarify, align, and speak from a centered place, your vibration tightens, sharpens, becomes a frequency that matches the outcome you want. That's why asking with clarity doesn't feel like forcing. It feels like tuning. You don't push, you resonate. Now think of it like a radio. The world is broadcasting infinite potentials, but unless you tune, that is, unless you define, voice, and feel your desire, you get noise. Asking is the dial turn. I want more is a fuzzy station that the field can't lock onto. I'm ready to attract 3 consistent clients who pay premium rates and align with my values is a precise frequency. The moment you articulate it, your subconscious starts scanning for who, what, and where that matches. And your behavior shifts subtly. You notice the right conversations, you send the right messages, you prioritize differently. That internal shift ripples outward. The field begins to answer with subtle nudges, an unexpected referral, a timely idea, someone showing up who carries a piece of the puzzle. This is not mystical smoke and mirrors. It's practical feedback. The field isn't some passive backdrop. It's responsive. When you ask, you activate a collaborative loop. You ask, you observe, you refine, you ask again with updated clarity. That's where momentum lives. If you treat asking like a one-time throwaway line, you get one-time noise back. If you treat it as ongoing conversation, you learn the language, what words land, what feelings need clearing, what actions amplify, and what corrections the field hints at. What makes asking powerful is that it reframes your internal narrative. Before asking with purpose, you might have been carrying the quiet story that, I'm not sure if I deserve this, or if I want too much, I'll seem greedy, or maybe it's not the right time. Those stories muddy the signal because your words wear those undertones. When you speak from a clean place, I'm ready to receive consistent support that allows me to focus. Without the shadow of guilt, that's alignment. The field responds to the clarity of the request, not the worn-out caveats. That's why part of asking well is feeling your words as you say them. Does it sit in your body as expansion or contraction? If there's contraction, pause and adjust the internal story until the phrasing matches the feeling of allowance, not begging. A lot of people mistake movement for progress. They ask, then do a flurry of unfocused activity, hoping something sticks. Real asking changes the quality of movement. When your internal compass updates, your small daily behaviors start pointing toward the request without force. You begin to prioritize differently because your mind is no longer distracted by competing maybes. That internal coherence is the first return on asking. The external returns follow because you're now moving from a place the field can work with, not chaotic, not wishy-washy, but aligned. And then there's the feedback. You ask, and the response appears in a whisper, a coincidence, a person crossing your path, an idea surfacing that you hadn't considered. That's how you know you're in conversation. If you asked and heard nothing, the first question isn't, "What's wrong with the universe?" It's, "What's ambiguous in my ask? What internal noise am I still carrying?" You tune again. You refine the wording. You let your belief catch up with your words. That's how a signal gains strength. That's how you stop yelling into the void and start hearing answers in the subtlest ways, which then guide your next ask and your next move. Here's the subtle acceleration. When you consistently practice this, asking with intention, noticing the response, adjusting, the universe becomes less mysterious and more like a partner. You stop wondering if that was luck. You begin to trace cause. I asked for clarity, then I had that conversation, then that opportunity opened. That traceability builds trust. Trust reduces desperation. Desperation scatters. Alignment centers. So what do you do next? Keep the signal clean. Whenever a desire surfaces, don't shove it into someday. Name it clearly. Speak it with present-leaning language. I'm ready to receive. I'm aligning with. I choose to attract. Avoid softening qualifiers. I hope to or I wish for. Maybe someday. Replace them with ownership phrases. Write your request down. Say it out loud. Listen to how it feels. Adjust the internal story if it carries guilt, scarcity, or hesitation. Then act. Small actions that match the ask are the proof you're serious, and they deepen the field's response. Micro recap. Asking is a deliberate tuning, sharpening your internal frequency and initiating a responsive loop. Clarity in wording and internal alignment turns vague wishing into actionable signal and invites intelligent feedback. You know the power of asking when it's clear. Now feel what happens when it's not. This is the version of you that keeps saying the same vague wish and wondering why the world doesn't move. Meet Alex, not in some distant, stylized story, but as a version of you when the signal is blurry. Monday morning. His inbox has 3 polite rejections. He scrolls the same feed, reading other people's breakthroughs, while his own goals float like untethered balloons. He mutters, "I want abundance," and posts it as a caption with a half-hearted emoji, then does nothing to follow it. He tells himself, "Maybe next month, I'll get traction soon." The energy is tired. The asking is a soft echo in a cavern, swallowed before it even reaches the walls. What's happening? Alex is asking, but asking poorly. His language is shapeless. I need more. I want success. Something big, please. Those words sound like hope dressed in apology. Underneath, he carries the quiet narratives that keep the ask weak. If I want too much, I'll look desperate. Or, maybe I don't deserve this. Or, I just have to wait for the right moment. Those internal scripts leak into his phrasing, and the field hears confusion, not clarity. So it replies with reflection, ambiguity, noise, half opportunities that don't stick, the kind of progress that feels like a spin without direction. He blames timing, the market, or his own luck. The truth is simpler. He never gave the universe a clean, coherent signal to work with. Now ask yourself, how many times have you done exactly what Alex does? Said something general, felt some initial flicker of hope, then watched momentum dissolve because nothing held shape? That's the trap. It's not that the universe is against you. It's that your asking was filled with static, and the responsive field mirrored back the static. You got feedback, but it looked like frustration, indecision, or delay. Instead of auditing, you doubled down on louder wishing, and the loop kept reinforcing the fog. The reset starts with a question. What do you really want? Not more or better. Those are placeholders that hide the shape. Drill down. If you want stability and income, how much? For what purpose? What would that allow you to stop doing and start becoming? If you want influence, influence over whom? To accomplish what? That's the first micro action. Write the wish and then ask the follow-up. Why does this matter? That second question forces specificity. Then speak it aloud. I'm ready to attract a consistent $2,000 extra per month through freelance clients who respect my time and pay fairly, so I can stop scrambling and choose projects that align with my values. Hear the difference? That sentence has texture, amount, source, values, purpose. It carries a new internal alignment because Alex, in that moment, stops hiding behind vague desire and chooses clarity. The next layer is internal alignment. He realizes he's been carrying a belief that abundance will make him selfish. That asking for more means taking from others. That belief softened his ask with guilt, which turned the request into a question with a frown. I guess I could use more stability if it's okay. We don't fix that with more cheerleading. He holds it, names it. I have believed that asking for enough makes me selfish, and then reframes. I can have stability and use it to create more value, including giving back. That shift changes the tone in his body. When he rephrases his ask now, it doesn't feel like a desperate plea, it feels like a declaration. He says, I'm ready to attract a dependable $2,000 per month from aligned clients, and I'm putting in the outreach daily to make it real. The field hears readiness, not scarcity-laced half wishes. Now he moves into action, not frantic all-over-the-place activity, but small, aligned moves. He reaches out to 3 potential clients each morning with a message that reflects the same clarity. I help teams streamline X so they can focus on Y, and I'm currently opening 2 premium slots. He follows up with gratitude when small signs arrive, an intro, a polite "not now" that includes feedback, a referral. Each time, he notes it silently. I asked, something shifted? That's the iterative loop, the conversation. It's not a one ask, one result expectation. Here finds. The first message is decent. The second asks for feedback. The third includes a slightly sharper benefit. He's learning how his language lands and adjusting his frequency. Contrast that reset with the old pattern. Before, he thought progress required more hustle. Now he sees progress requires better asking and alignment. The old ask was like shouting for help in a storm without a beacon. The new ask is like lighting a clear signal fire and adjusting the smoke until searchers see it and respond. That's the difference between spinning and co-creating. And here's the trick. The old patterns try to wiggle back in. After a small win, Alex begins to water down the ask. He slips back to, I just need more clients, and the momentum blurs. That's when the check-in happens. Instead of self-recrimination, he asks, where did I drift? What phrasing softened? What internal story crept in? He rewrites. He tightens. He asks again. That self-reflection keeps the loop alive without the shame that deadens energy. You get to do the same. When something stalls, don't default to, I must not be meant for this. Pause. Ask. Was my question clear? Did I carry conflicting belief under it? What small tweak makes it sharper? Then refine. Speak it again. And take a matching small action. That's the reset. That's the upgrade from I hope to I'm ready. So here's what you walk away with. Poor asking looks like vague wishes wrapped in internal conflict, which get mirrored back as confusion and stalled momentum. The upgrade path is audit, clarify, realign, act, and iterate. You don't need a grand overhaul, just a clean, specific request, a belief that supports it, and consistent, aligned movement. Do that, and the field stops giving you noise and begins giving you breadcrumbs that lead forward. Micro recap. Vague, guilt-laced asking creates static. Resetting with precise language, internal alignment, and small consistent action turns confusion into forward momentum. You've felt the stuckness. You've seen the reset. Now you sharpen the tool. Intention clarity is the difference between sending a whisper into a storm and raising a clean, focused signal that the field can lock onto. You don't get what you vaguely want. You get what you clearly ask for. That's the rule. And so the first question, can you say it without hedging? If you can't, you haven't really asked. Here's a micro action. Right now, take the desire you've been carrying, write it down in one sentence with 3 layers. What you want, why it matters, and a boundary that keeps it from dissolving into fog. Example, I'm ready to attract a consistent $2,000 extra per month from freelance clients who respect my time, so I can stop scrambling and choose projects aligned with my values, and I won't trade my energy for undercut rates. Read it aloud. Does it sit in your chest as expansion? Good. If it makes you wince, something in the phrasing is carrying old noise. Tweak the story under it. Replace I hope to with I'm ready to. Replace maybe someday with I choose now. That's clarity in motion. What makes intention sharp? 3 ingredients: detail, feeling, and boundary. Detail shapes the request. More money is blurry. An extra $2,000 per month has edges. Consistent income without source or alignment still floats. Specify the form, the context, the rhythm. Feeling charges it. If your voice says the ask, but your inner story says, I don't deserve it, the field picks up the conflict and reflects indecision back. Ask from a place of allowance, not apology. Feel the worthiness in the sentence. Boundary distinguishes it from everything else. Saying, I want abundance without any no or not then lets everything collapse into it. Saying, I'm asking for aligned clients and not taking lowball offers gives the field contrast. It clarifies what you accept and what you don't, not as resistance, but as precision. Language scaffolds belief. When you use softening qualifiers, I guess I'd like to, if it's possible. Someday, maybe, you dilute the ask before it even leaves your lips. Shift to active, present, confident framing. I'm attracting. I choose. I allow a bit. I align with. I commit to. Those aren't empty affirmations. They're declarations that bring your internal map into alignment with the request. The field hears the difference between a wish and a decision. Now, let's refine a common trap. You want clarity, but you think that means you have to control every variable. That's not the case. Clear intention isn't a straitjacket. It's a compass with a flexible path. You can ask, I'm ready to attract reliable income that supports my growth. Without dictating exact clients, dates, or methods, you define the what and the why, and you leave the how to the responsive intelligence. That balance, structure without rigid blindness, is what keeps your signal alive. You're not clinging to one shape. You're clear about the destination and trusting the path. Break big asks into layered intentions. If your ultimate goal feels too far, I cascade it. Want a thriving business? First ask, what is my unique value that people actually need? Next, who is one person I can connect with this week to get feedback? Then, who can refer me to a pilot client? Each layer carries specificity, and each fulfilled layer builds internal proof and strengthens the larger frequency. Clarity isn't just a single endpoint sentence. It's the architecture of stepping stone asks that accumulate into the big result. Listen, intention clarity also includes cleaning the hidden language that sabotages it. I want visibility, but I don't want to seem pushy, secretly says. I'm unsure if I deserve attention. Rephrase it. I'm ready to share my message confidently and attract the right audience who welcomes it. The old wording creates a tug of war inside. The new one removes the internal contradiction. That's the subtle work. Before you speak, feel into the layers. Does your ask still carry a but disguised as a footnote? Remove the footnote. Ask without the silent apology. Ask with the assumption that what you want is a natural extension of what you offer. Here's a test. Say your intention in front of a mirror and watch your body. Do you shrink, hesitate, or brighten? That physical feedback is truth. If your posture collapses, your internal story is whispering something different than your words. Adjust the story. Maybe you've been carrying the idea that asking too clearly makes you greedy, or that wanting stability means you're selfish. Surface that. Name it. I've believed asking for security takes from others. Then rewrite. Receiving stability allows me to contribute more consistently. See how the shift changes the energy of the request? That's alignment between story and sentence. The next layer, it is durability. Clarity isn't a one-and-done utterance. It's something you revisit, sharpen, and refine. When the field responds with a small nudge, you don't stop and assume the job is done. You observe what came, what felt aligned, what didn't land. Then you adjust the ask. More precise, better feeling, more grounded, and speak again. That iterative refinement is how blurred longings become vivid outcomes. You're not guessing blindly, you're calibrating. The loop of ask, receive, refine, ask again is the momentum engine. One more pivot. What if your ask is clear, but the response still stalls? Before you blame the field, ask, did your words carry hidden contradiction? Is the feeling underneath still tangled in fear or scarcity? Clarity is surface, alignment is depth. Ask your internal system, does this feel true? If your internal answer is I hope so, then you haven't integrated the belief. Keep refining until your ask feels like a calm, steady truth, not a desperate plea. That's the sound the universe listens for. Coherence, not noise. Finally, Sharpen your ability to differentiate core intention from distraction. I want more time is a common, general complaint. Drill. What are you doing with that time? I want 2 uninterrupted creative hours each morning to build my project without guilt. Now you've given the field a frame and your day a directive. Clarity organizes your energy before external alignment ever shows up. The internal shift happens first, and the external follows. Micro recap. Clarity gives your desire shape. Detail, feeling, boundary, turning vague wants into coherent, aligned requests. Refined, feel, iterate, and keep calibrating so the field hears readiness, not confusion. You've learned to ask with sharper language. Now the next layer, internal alignment. The truth is this: no matter how precise your ask sounds on the surface, if the inside of you is running a different program, the signal fractures, your vibration, the composite of your beliefs, emotions, expectations, and habitual reactions, either supports the request or contradicts it quietly beneath the words. That's why people can act brilliantly and still stall. Their internal landscape hasn't been cleared to hold what they're requesting. Asking without alignment is like building a high-performance engine and then putting it in a car with flat tires and no fuel. It looks good on paper, but it doesn't move. So start here. Identify the misalignments. What are the internal stories that undercut your ask? I'm not ready. I don't deserve. I'll take what I can get. If I want more, I'm being greedy. Better to wait than risk rejection. These are not abstract weaknesses. They are energetic leaks. They appear as hesitation when you speak, as a subtle tightening in your chest or when you name your desire, as a voice that backpedals after the declaration, I'm ready to attract consistent income, but only if it doesn't change anything about my current identity. That, a but, is a signal. Catch it. Name it. You don't clear internal blocks by ignoring them. You clear them by bringing them into light. One practical process. Journal the ask you made, then write out the internal dialogue that shows up when you say it. If your ask is, I'm ready to receive aligned opportunity around X. Then beneath it, what are the whispers? What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I get it and lose myself? Let those surface without judgment. You're not trying to delete them. You're trying to understand their origin. Where did the belief, I have to earn worthiness, come from? Whose expectation did you absorb that turned asking into something shameful? That excavation is the beginning of alignment. Next, reframe. Reframing isn't about lying to yourself. It's about offering the internal system a more expansive story that serves your ask. If your old internal narrative says, asking for abundance means I'm selfish, reframe. Asking for abundance gives me a stronger platform to contribute, to uplift others, to create impact without burning out. Say it aloud. Feel the difference. The first story tightens in your throat. The second opens your chest. The universe responds to the second because your vibration now matches the request. You've removed the internal dissonance, and that's what coherence feels like. Your story, your words, your emotional tone all point in the same direction. Habit matters too. Your brain is wired to conserve energy and recycle patterns. If you've spent years reacting to scarcity, your default nervous system will flare during acceleration attempts, whispering, "Slow down. This is too much." That's the old habit trying to protect you from perceived risk. A simple alignment practice is a daily check-in, 2 minutes in the morning. Ask yourself, What belief is running today that could interfere with my ask? Listen. Name it, then counter it with a small, embodied corrective. If the belief is, I'm not enough, do one action that proves otherwise. Send the message. Share the content. Complete the small promise you made to yourself. Reinforcement rewires habit. The internal map rewrites slowly, and each aligned action becomes a trust deposit into your own belief bank. Emotional clearing is part of this too. Heavy, unresolved emotion, resentment, fear, grief, acts like static under your intention. You can ask for joy, expansion, connection. But if you are emotionally carrying old pain untreated, the field reflects back fragmented versions of your request. Do not mistake emotional clearing for mood pumping. This is not about faking positivity. It's about making space, tools, breathwork to release tightness, journaling to unspool stories, meditation to observe recurring triggers without reacting, and movement to shift stuck charge in the body. Even a simple practice of naming the emotion as it comes, I notice fear about visibility, diffuses its density. The minute you label it, you separate from it. Then ask, what does this fear need to feel safe so I can still move forward? The answer is usually a small boundary or a micro commitment you can keep to prove to yourself that you're not overwhelmed by the emotion. Another alignment hinge is identity. Often, your ask is at odds with who you believe you are. You say, I'm ready to attract major success. While your identity is nested in, I'm just a background player, the mismatch creates friction. Shift identity in microdoses. Act in small ways that reflect the version of you who already has that outcome. If you're asking for leadership, take responsibility for one small decision today with calm authority. If you're asking for creative recognition, share a piece of work before it feels fully perfect. These are identity calibrations. They don't require the whole transformation overnight. They require consistent micro-alignment that informs your vibration, what you do, how you speak to yourself, what you allow yourself to receive. You also need to set up rituals that anchor alignment. A ritual is not mystical fluff. It's a predictable container that trains your nervous system to shift into receptive alignment. Before you ask, take 30 seconds to breathe and ground. Place your hand on your heart. Speak the ask slowly. Notice any internal resistance. Breathe into it. Then release the ask with intention. Follow it with a small aligned action within the hour. That sequence says to your system, I'm serious. I'm aligning internally. I'm not moving externally. Over time, your internal state begins to anticipate alignment instead of bracing against it. That anticipation becomes ease, and ease is magnetism. Your vibration no longer carries the heavy drag of old fear. It flows. Accountability accelerates alignment. The internal blocks are often invisible because they live in automatic response. You need a mirror. That mirror can be a coach, a trusted friend, or your own written reflection. Share your ask. Share the internal friction that appears when you say it. Ask for a question back. What do you hear me softening? That external reflection bounces your internal patterns back to you in ways you can't see alone. Then, adjust. Tell the story again with a more honest alignment. That loop, ask, reflect, recalibrate, is the difference between intention stagnating and intention becoming a lived frequency. Remember, alignment isn't linear. Some days you'll feel crisp, other days you'll hear the old stories creeping in. That's normal. The practice isn't perfection, it's course correction. When you catch the drift, don't shame. Observe, realign, ask again. The field respects clarity, but it also respects self-compassion because self-compassion keeps your vibration open instead of contracting into shame, which collapses signal. Micro recap. Internal alignment clears the static under your ask. Identify limiting beliefs, reframe them, adjust identity through small acts, and build rituals so your vibration coheres with your intention. Consistent reflection and compassionate course correction turn sharp asking into sustainable momentum. You've cleared the fog. You've sharpened the ask. Now the next lever, act as if. Acting as if is not pretending in a hollow way. It's choosing behavior, feeling, and decisions from the identity of already having what you desire before the external proof fully shows up. When you behave as if, you align your internal frequency with the future you're calling in. That alignment accelerates the conversation because the universe doesn't just respond to words, it responds to embodied presence. You stop sending mixed signals. You're not asking for abundance while behaving like scarcity is safer. You begin living from the outcome, and that changes everything. Here's the pivot. You can ask clearly and still wait because your actions don't reflect that ask. That gap creates resistance. Acting as if closes it. If your request is for consistent income, acting as if means you make decisions from the perspective of someone who already has a baseline of financial stability, not reckless, not arrogant, but confident in allocation, investment of time, and generosity. If what you want is influence, acting as if means you show up with the calm authority of someone who already has the floor, even when the room is small. If you're asking for deeper connection, acting as if means you give presence first, show vulnerability appropriately, and carry the expectation that others will match your sincerity. Not because you chase it, but because you model it. Do a quick internal check. Pick the thing you asked for. Now ask, how would the version of you who already has it think, speak, decide, and move today? Write down 3 behaviors, then do one of them right now. That's the micro action. If your ask is for more aligned clients, maybe the embodied behavior is you send personalized outreach with value, schedule a discovery call confidently, or adjust your pricing because you respect your own time. You don't wait for the perfect evidence. You step into the posture, and the evidence begins to rearrange around that posture. That's the feedback loop. You act as if, the field responds. You adjust, you act again. Acting as if rewires your internal identity in subtle ways. It creates a feedback loop inside you. You act from the wished-for self. Your experience shifts because your decisions start to produce different small results, and those results feed belief, which makes subsequent acting more authentic. It's not shallow imitation. When you keep showing up as if, the neural pathways that once enforced the old limiting identity begin rewiring. Your body stops bracing for lack. It begins to anticipate flow. That anticipation isn't wishful. It's a recalibrated expectation based on repeated micro-embodiments. Here's a concrete example. You've asked to be seen as a person of influence in your niche. The old self is quiet, waiting for external validation before speaking. Acting as if means you speak with thoughtful brevity in places you used to stay silent. You offer insight in conversations before being asked. You share content that reflects competence, and not because you've been crowned, but because you are choosing the posture of someone contributing with impact. You act as if, not by faking expertise, but by leading with the confidence that your perspective is valuable and that learning is part of the growth, not the absence. That posture pulls in people who respond to the frequency, not the credentials. The universe responds by placing more mirrors in front of you. Opportunities, introductions, audience engagement that reflect back your embodied identity. Another aspect is emotional rehearsal. If you want to attract harmonious relationships, acting as if means practicing the emotional tone you'd have in those relationships. That means showing up generous without overextending, setting healthy boundaries calmly, and responding from a place of secure self-worth instead of old scarcity-driven reactivity. You feel into the emotion, and then you behave from it. That emotional embodiment shapes your vibration. It changes how others experience you. And it signals to the field the kind of connections you are matching with. That shift often feels like a small internal alignment, but it reverberates externally in a way that surprises you, not because it's forced, but because it's authentic to the version you've chosen to inhabit. There's a common misstep. People confuse act as if with denial. They try to act like they have something while their internal story contradicts it. I'm successful, they say, while their internal narrative whispers, you're going to lose it. That mismatch creates a dissonant vibration that the field struggles to reconcile. The result is inauthenticity that the world reflects with stagnation or backfiring situations. The real power of acting as if is coherence. Your internal belief, emotional tone, and outward action all line up. If there's a gap, slow down. Don't fake it over the crack. Close the gap. Adjust the internal story. Feel the identity in small, believable increments, and then expand the behavior. Acting as if is scaffolding, not deception. It's incremental embodiment, not a leap into something your system rejects. You also use as if to rehearse future decisions. Imagine the conversation you want to have, the negotiation you're preparing for, the launch you're about to release. Act as if you've already navigated it with grace. What does your tone sound like? What choices do you make differently? That mental rehearsal primes your nervous system. When the real moment arrives, your body doesn't freeze in uncertainty. It flows from the practiced identity. That's how elite performer, creators and leaders make their biggest moves. They don't wait for perfect clarity and outcome. They practice as if the path is true. Then let real experience adjust the fine details. Your ask becomes a lived script, not a wishful draft. There's a second-order benefit to this. You stop needing external proof to feel worthy of movement. If you wait for the sign before acting, you send the signal. Wait in hesitation, and the field hears indecision. Acting as if releases that loop. You signal, you move, you notice feedback. That motion builds internal trust fast. I acted, something shifted. My presence upgraded the signal. Cool. When you repeatedly do this, you build a muscle of internal momentum that no longer relies on big external validation to start. That's sovereignty. That's what happens when asking becomes identity. Now pair the act as if with a sharpened ask and alignment you've built previously. You're not just saying, I want more opportunity. You're asking clearly, clearing internal conflict, and then behaving like someone who already manages, attracts, and navigates those opportunities. The field recognizes the pattern. It doesn't have to puzzle out if you're serious. Your layered frequency, ask, align, act, becomes a consistent signal that invites proportional response. Before you move, do this. Identify one area where you've been waiting for proof before action. Write the ask, feel into its alignment, and choose one as-if behavior that a version of you who already has the outcome would do today. Do it. Observe the subtle internal shift, then note any external ripple. Someone reaching out, a new idea, a small gate opening. That's the conversation expanding. Keep iterating. Ask, embody, observe, refine. That loop is the engine of momentum. Micro recap, acting as if bridges the gap between request and reality by aligning your identity, emotions, and behavior with the outcome. Coherent embodiment turns asking into lived presence and accelerates responsive momentum. You've asked clearly, aligned internally, and embodied the outcome. Now widen the lens. There's a current running under effective asking that most people ignore. It's not a one-way demand, it's a cycle. The more you give, genuinely without calculation, the more the field responds with a reciprocal flow. That's the giving cycle. It's not about sacrifice as penance, it's about establishing energetic reciprocity. You contribute value, presence, insight, or kindness, and you open the channel for abundance to return in forms that often surprise you. Here's the simple truth. When you lean into asking without giving, your requests can start to feel hollow, like a trumpet blowing into a closed room. The field notes imbalance. Giving isn't a tip you add to grease the wheel. It's a structural component. Think of it this way. Abundance isn't something you hoard. It's something that circulates. When you give a sincere piece of your time, a helpful connection, a knowledge share, a thoughtful question, you signal that you're participating in the exchange, not just drawing from it. That signal changes your vibration, and the universe hears it. You move from a consumer posture to a collaborator posture. That posture is magnetic because it says, I'm part of the flow, not outside it. Let me make it tangible. You want support in your career. Instead of just asking for introductions, you share a piece of helpful insight with someone in your network first. You recommend a tool that saved your time. You introduce two people who benefit from each other. That act of giving doesn't dilute your desire. It amplifies the frequency of circulation. The field responds. A new connection lands back in your inbox. Someone remembers your generosity when opportunity arises. Or the right mentor shows up just when you need perspective. That's the reciprocity in motion. Giving seeds the field to align with your clarity, and through it, answers begin to ripple back. Giving also rewires scarcity wiring inside you. When you give from a place of overflow, not from a I have to earn my worth scarcity guilt, you reinforce the belief that there's enough for you and others. That belief softens fear. And fear is one of the deepest blocks to receiving. So the cycle doesn't just affect external returns, it reshapes internal terrain. You stop asking from a place of neediness and start asking from a place of contribution. You begin to feel worthy to receive because you've already been participating. There's a pattern most people miss. They ask, get a small response, and then wait in the same posture of taking. Instead, what if the next move after a small yes is giving something relevant right back? The small answer becomes the spark for your next contribution. A mentor gives feedback. You sent a thoughtful summary of how you applied it and what changed. A client hires you. you follow up with a value-add tip that helps their outcome. That kind of giving isn't desperate. It's strategic and real. It builds momentum in ways that feel like compound interest. Small actions stacking into a reputation, into trust, into more aligned return flow. You don't have to give grandly. The micro action is where this starts. Today, identify one person in your orbit who could use something you have: time, attention, insight, and give it without an immediate ask. Maybe you send a short message to someone with a resource they need, or you leave a comment that lifts their work, or you offer a brief, honest observation that helps them. Then, watch. Notice if the field responds not immediately. And that's okay. The giving cycle isn't always a fast transaction. Sometimes your generosity changes someone's internal alignment, and their ripple returns to you in a different form, bigger and more unexpected, weeks later. That's the long game of reciprocity. There's nuance here. Giving from obligation or performance. I have to give because then I'll get, collapses the cycle into transaction, and the energy loses its resonance. The quality of the giving matters. Ask yourself, is this contribution authentic? Does it carry the internal tone of, I'm sharing because I see you, rather than, I'm sharing to earn credit? That authenticity windows your vibration to a different frequency. People sense it. The field senses it. That's why the most magnetic people are often those who show up to serve before they are asked, because the universe has already calibrated them as aligned channels. Their asking doesn't come across as begging. It comes as a natural continuation of their participation. Giving also sharpens your clarity. When you contribute, you test the edges of your own request, offering your insight or resource pieces together, what you truly value, what you consider worth investing in, and consequently, what you should be asking for more precisely. A creator who gives clear content learns what resonates, and that data refines their ask for better visibility. An entrepreneur who gives exceptional onboarding experiences sees what matters to customers, and that clarity informs the kind of partners and opportunities they request. The cycle becomes a feedback loop. Ask, give, learn, refine, ask again at a higher level, give again with deeper alignment. Combine giving with the act as if posture you already built. Suppose you're acting as if you're a connector in your industry. Then your giving is visible. You introduce people. You share opportunities. You bring attention to others' work. That behavior strengthens your identity as someone who circulates value. And the universe responds by making you the hub of more aligned opportunity. You're not performing altruism. You're amplifying your own energetic signal by living the version of you who already participates in the flow. Now, let's address the internal resistance that sometimes pops up. If I give too much, I'll be taken advantage of, or I have to save my energy in case I don't get back what I give. Those are echoes of old scarcity stories. The antidote isn't mindless generosity, it's smart overflow. You give from a baseline that's healthy. Set boundaries about what you share and how, as though you don't deplete. Giving doesn't mean overextending. It means choosing what to share that aligns with your capacity and sending it with a tone of abundance, not depletion. That balance ensures the cycle sustains you instead of draining you. One more lever. Integrate gratitude into the giving cycle. When something comes back, big, small, expected, or surprising, acknowledge it. Send appreciation. That isn't just polite. It's the echo that closes the loop. telling the field, I received, I'm in alignment, I'm still participating. Gratitude boosts the frequency of circulation. It's the subtle signal that says you're not taking silently, you're reciprocating the acknowledgement, which invites more refinement and return flow. So here's the practical sequence. Ask clearly. Align your internal story. Act as if the outcome is present. Then give authentically from overflow in small, consistent ways. Observe the responses. Adjust your ask using what you learned and given. Express gratitude for the return and repeat. That's the giving cycle turned into a sustainable system that deepens your relationship with possibility instead of exhausting it. Micro recap. Giving isn't a bonus. It's an essential pendulum swing in asking. Authentic contribution shifts your vibration, opens reciprocal flow, refines your clarity, and builds trust so the universe responds with aligned return. You've built the ask, aligned inside, embodied the outcome, and engaged the flow by giving. Now comes the muscle that separates occasional miracles from sustained momentum. Persistent asking. Persistence isn't stubborn repetition. It's an evolving conversation. It's the discipline of showing up, listening, adjusting, and asking again with updated clarity. Not because you failed, but because the field is dynamic, and depth requires return visits. The first ask opens the door. The next ones keep it clear, widen it, and bring in more of what matters. Here's the trap most people fall into. They ask all at once, don't get the exact answer they imagined, and assume silence means no. So they stop. The signal fades. Momentum dies. Or they repeat the same words louder. Thinking volume will force alignment, while the field hears the same old frequency and reflect the same old pattern. That isn't persistence. That's noise. Real persistence is refinement. It's asking with nuance, listening for the subtle response, and updating. Ask and then pay attention. The small shifts, the tiny yeses, the degrees of movement. Did a new piece of information come in that changes your framing? Did the initial response feel lukewarm because the ask was only half aligned? Did the internal story creep back in, softening the tone with doubt or self-protection? This is your checkpoint. Persistent asking is not mindless looping. It's intelligent iteration. You ask, you observe, you diagnose, you adjust, you ask again. Each cycle sharpens the signal and deepens the partnership with the responsive field. Let's make it practical. Suppose you ask for a partnership that elevates your work. The first ask was clear. I am ready to collaborate with someone whose audience aligns with my values to co-create a project that scales impact. You sent the outreach, and the response was polite but non-committal. Most people would either drop it or bump with the same phrasing. Just checking in, still interested. Instead, you do persistent asking. You revisit the ask. Did your message reflect the other person's language? Did you surface a mutual benefit clearly? You tweak. I noticed you're focusing on X. Here's an idea that connects your recent initiative with the project I'm building. And I'd love to explore a pilot together. You follow up, not with pressure, but with added value. That's refined persistence. You adjust the ask's packaging, not the core intention. And the field responds differently because you've mirrored back awareness and alignment. Persistence also shows up in how you hold space for timing. The universe's answer sometimes arrives delayed, not because you weren't heard, but because other pieces were still aligning. Someone had to become ready. A resource had to shift, or a sequence of events had to unfold so your request fits into a coherent whole. If your ask peters out into doubt during that wait, you lose leverage. Instead, persistent asking means continuing the conversation in ways that reinforce readiness without impatience. Keep asking in quiet ways. Reaffirm your alignment internally. Revisit your own contribution. And send small updates that demonstrate continued movement. That's the tone that says, I'm still here. I'm still aligned. I'm still engaged. The field doesn't interpret that as desperation. It hears consistent presence. There's also a deeper layer. Persistent asking becomes persistent self-reflection. When the answer stalls, your first pivot isn't to blame outside conditions. Your first pivot is internal audit. Ask, what shifted in the ask? Where did my clarity drift? What internal friction reappeared? Did my act as if posture soften? You don't overcorrect wildly. You gently recalibrate. Maybe your original request had a boundary that softened because old fear crept back in. Maybe you started asking for growth without defining the type of growth, and the field responded with scattered opportunities. The reflection gives context. Then you reframe the ask with that learning. That cycle is how you evolve. Small in real time, massive over cumulative rounds. Persistence pays in compound ways. Each time you ask and refine, you're building trust with the field and with yourself. When you see feedback and adjust, you prove to yourself that the system is responsive, which reduces the anxiety around, what if nothing comes? The pattern becomes, ask, get a ripple, refine, get a deeper ripple. That builds confidence. Confidence makes your next asking cleaner. Clean asking invites clearer answers. Momentum becomes less about pushing and more about flowing with informed rhythm. You can also use persistent asking to layer intention. Big outcomes rarely emerge from one heavy ask. They layer. You ask for the major transformation, and the field gives you a doorway, an introduction, an insight, a small yes. Then you ask for the next piece. Thank you for the connection. How can I make this collaboration deeply valuable for both sides? That next ask completes the mini arc. Then you ask, what's the next logical step? You're not impatient. You're moving in nested progression. That's persistent asking as a ladder, not a hammer. Each rung builds the bigger outcome while you stay connected to the nuance of unfolding. There's a common misperception that persistence means repeating the same request until something breaks. That creates friction, and the field eventually muffles the signal because it hears stuck vibration. You avoid that by letting each repetition carry a breath of freshness, new observation, deeper intention, adjusted language, or refined boundary. Think of it like tuning a guitar. You pluck the string, hear the note, adjust the tension, pluck again. You don't pound the string harder. You refine until resonance stays. That's the kind of persistence that keeps the ask alive without exhausting the system, or you. Persistent asking also includes gratitude in the loop. Every small answer, even a not yet framed as a moment of learning, is acknowledged. That acknowledgement isn't passive. It's a feedback signal that says, I see you, I'm tracking the conversation. Gratitude softens the internal resistance that could creep into doubt and keeps your vibration open. It's one of the secret conditioners that ensures the loop doesn't calcify into entitlement or frustration. When you thank the field, you're essentially reinforcing the partnership. You asked, something shifted, you acknowledged. You're asking again with updated clarity. That rhythm keeps you moving with grace, not grind. We're building endurance. Persistent asking isn't about how long you can push. It's about how fluidly you can keep the conversation alive. There will be moments when the answers feel thin. That's when the difference between a person who gives up and a person who builds a legacy shows. The former interprets delay as failure. The latter interprets delay as signal to refine. You choose the latter. You keep the ask alive, not by force, but keep on by curiosity. What's different now? What's the next small upgrade in the way I'm asking? What bit left under my words needs softening or strengthening? That persistence makes you a master of nuance, and nuance is the currency that turns potential into reality over time. So here is your immediate move. Take one active request you've made that hasn't fully landed yet. Don't give up. Ask the follow-up question. What's the smallest adjustment that could make this clearer? Do the internal audit. What belief softened? What boundary blurred? What language got vague? Refine the wording. Add one small behavior that reflects continued movement. Speak it again with that updated coherence. Then watch for the subtle shift. You're not demanding the final outcome instantly. You're deepening the conversation. Micro recap. Persistent asking's iterative conversation. Ask, listen, reflect, refine, and repeat with freshness. So momentum builds, not from force, but from aligned evolution. You asked, you refined, you embodied, and still, the answer doesn't show up the way you expected. That's when the quiet panic tries to wedge itself in. The part of you that thinks the universe stopped listening, that your asking failed, that maybe you were wrong about deserving. Pause. That pause is the critical hinge. Delayed answers are not proof of absence. They are invitations to deeper alignment, to healing, to trust building. What you do in the silence matters more than the initial asking. This is where most people quit. Or they force louder asking that sounds like desperation. What you do instead is lean into the delay with curiosity, audit what's beneath the surface, and widen your perspective on timing without losing your signal. First, understand the landscape. Delays happen for reasons that are not always visible. Timing in responsive systems, call it the universe, call it intelligent flow, call it orchestration, has layers. Sometimes the piece you asked for depends on other people becoming ready, other resources shifting, or unseen sequences lining up so the eventual outcome fits into a larger coherent pattern. That doesn't mean you wait passively. It means you keep the conversation alive while respecting the fact that the answer might be maturing behind the scenes. The tension between urgency and patience is what reveals whether your alignment is brittle or resilient. So what do you do when the answer delays? Start with reflection, not recrimination. Ask yourself, did I soften the ask somewhere along the way? Has my internal story crept in again? Fear, doubt, old identity softening the vibration? Did I drift from the act as if posture into overanalysis or anxiety? Sometimes the delay isn't because the field is silent. It's because your own signal started to wobble. A small internal check-in can reveal that the confident tone of the initial request has blurred into a whisper of worry. Catch that. Realign the internal story. Reaffirm the ask with fresh clarity. That's step 1. Step 2 is healing the deeper misalignments that delay answers even when your phrasing and behavior are technically correct. There are old emotional holograms, past disappointments, betrayal, rejection that create a subconscious holding pattern around receiving. You might be asking for abundance, recognition, connection, and yet part of you is braced for the other shoe to drop. That bracing warps the frequency. The field hears the underlying tension and responds with delay, not to punish, but to give you space to integrate the deeper readiness. So sit with it. Name it. I notice I'm holding back because I'm afraid if I get this, I'll lose it. Or, I notice a part of me thinks I'm not enough, even though I asked clearly. This isn't about fixing in one blow. It's about peeling the layers, acknowledging, forgiving the old story, and choosing again. That conscious rechoice softens the bracing and opens resonance again. The next layer is trust. Delayed answers, if mishandled, become evidence of unworthiness. You interpret silence as rejection. That narrative collapses your vibration and shuts down the signal. Instead, choose to reframe delay as a not yet that's working beneath the surface. Trust isn't blind. It's built by noticing the subtle breadcrumbs, the small shifts, the faint alignments, the inner nudges that confirm the field is still in conversation. Maybe the big result hasn't arrived, but a micro insight, a small new connection, a shift in your own thinking happened. Acknowledge those. Those are trust deposits. You're training your system to interpret the delay not as absence, but as part of a larger unfolding. That reduces the desperation, which in turn stabilizes your signal and keeps the conversation flowing, rather than collapsing into the noise of doubt. There's a practical rhythm to working through delayed answers. First, review the original ask and the layers under it: language, identity, emotion. Second, inventory. Any new data? What has shifted externally? Is there a piece you missed that would change how you frame the continuation? Third, take a small bridge action that signals continued movement without forcing the outcome. That might be a quiet check-in, a small update that adds value, a transparent expression of ongoing interest, or internally deepening your own alignment through a ritual that reinforces readiness. These bridge actions are how you stay active without overreacting. They say, I'm still here, I'm still aligned, I'm still trusting. That tone keeps the field engaged in a respectful, fluid dialogue. Another nuance: delayed answers often bring gifts you didn't ask for directly, but that are necessary for the sustainable version of what you originally wanted. You asked for growth and visibility, and the delay brought clarity on your message instead of immediate attention. You asked for a partnership, and the delay introduced you to a mentor who prepared you to lead it in a stronger way. That's the unseen intelligence, making sure the answer is not just fast, but wise. Learning to see those secondary gifts is part of the maturity of asking. It prevents you from prematurely calling no on something that's actually still aligning in a more suitable form. There's also the risk of overcompensation during delay. You double down with frantic asking, duplicating the same request in louder tones or chasing immediate appearances. That reverses into tension, which further slows the process. Instead of forcing, the better move is recalibration, subtle refinement, renewed internal alignment, and a measured expression of continued commitment. Think of it like a plant waiting for rain. You don't dig it up and shake the soil every hour. You adjust the support structure, ensure it's rooted, and keep tending it. The rain comes on its own rhythm. Your persistent presence makes it grow when it does. Delayed answers can also be tests of your identity integration. If your identity was, "I'm not enough," the lack of immediate answer feeds that old story. You've asked for abundance, and silence feels like confirmation of scarcity. That's why in delays, identity reinforcement matters. Reconnect with the version of you who asked in the first place. Revisit the act as if behaviors. Carry that posture again. Reaffirm internally. I asked, I'm aligned. The delay isn't a verdict, it's a deepening. That internal repetition doesn't have to be loud. It's a quiet undercurrent that stabilizes your nervous system and keeps the signal clean, even when external silence persists. When the waiting stretches, one of the most powerful moves is to enrich the conversation by adding insight, not desperation. Share what you've learned publicly, if appropriate. Send a thoughtful, value-based note to the person involved, or add depth to your own understanding of the desire. That additional contribution is a signal of growth, not a plea. It says, I'm evolving with the process. I'm not stagnating in the gap. That keeps your ask fresh, because you're not looping the same version, you're bringing the evolved version. The field responds differently because you've demonstrated development, not neediness. And then there's gratitude during delay. It's counterintuitive, but essential. Gratitude softens underlying tension, reminding your system that even without the big arrival, small alignments count. Thank the universe, the field, for the clarity that came, for the patience you're cultivating, for the subtle movement you can now see. That gratitude isn't passive resignation. It's an acknowledgement of ongoing collaboration. It keeps your vibration open and your posture receptive. It also signals that you're not just a demander. You're a co-creator who appreciates the process. So here's the operational takeaway. When answers delay, don't panic. Reflect. Audit what may have drifted. Heal, surface, and integrate any internal resistance that's reactivated. Reaffirm. Recommit your alignment with quiet confidence. Bridge. Take one small value-aligned action that keeps the conversation alive without clinging. Observe. Notice secondary gifts and subtle shifts. Give. Add insight or contribution to deepen the dialogue. Express gratitude. Acknowledge what's been received, however small. Repeat the cycle. That rhythm turns delay from dead zones into active realignment zones. Micro recap. Delayed answers are not failure. They're invitations to refine alignment, deepen trust, heal internal resistance, and expand the conversation through bridge actions and gratitude, transforming silence into a fertile pause. You've asked clearly. You've aligned internally. You've embodied the outcome. You've given. You've persisted. You've sat in the silence and deepened the conversation. Now this next lever is the emotional amplifier. Feeling good about asking. Most people treat askings like risk, like a vulnerability that needs hedging or apology. That internal tension dulls the signal. When you feel good, when you bring joy, gratitude, ease, and a quiet knowing into the ask, you change the energetic tone. You don't just make the request, you amplify its magnetic resonance. Feeling good isn't fluff, it's frequency tuning. It makes your asking not desperate, but attractive. It makes your vibration a match, not a struggle. Here's the core. The emotional state you carry into asking is the context that either supports or sabotages your intention. If you ask from a place of lack, worry, anxiety, the field receives a request tangled with fear. I want this because I'm missing it, and I'm afraid I won't get it. That undercurrent bends the response into survival mode outcomes, short-lived, inconsistent, partial. When you ask from a place of ease, appreciation, and anticipation, I'm ready for this, and I'm open to how it shows up, you send a cleaner, more expansive frequency. That doesn't mean you ignore urgency or ambition. It means the ambition is wrapped in enjoyment, not desperation. That combination is res and magnetic. People want to be an energy that feels abundant, not anxious. The universe responds the same way. So how do you get there? Start with the simplest internal calibration: gratitude. Before you ask, list 3 things related to your desire that you already have. If you're asking for deeper creative output, be grateful for the last small piece you created, at the time you carved out, the insight you had. If you're asking for better connections, be grateful for the last conversation that showed you something. That gratitude shifts your internal state from lack to fullness. It doesn't contradict wanting more. It frames wanting more from a place of expansion. Then make the ask. I'm ready to receive more of this, and I appreciate how the last bit already moved me forward. That's a vibration the field doesn't interpret as neediness. It hears readiness and celebration. Joy is another amplifier. There's a high frequency to lightness. You can practice asking with a small smile, a relaxed body, and a mental image of success that doesn't feel heavy. Imagine the version of your desired reality, and instead of overloading it with pressure, allow it to carry a spark of delight. I'm going to do this because it excites me, not because I'm fixing something broken. That emotional rehearsal does 2 things. It warms the field to your request, and it rewires your nervous system to anticipate the outcome as enjoyable, not threatening. When anticipation is joyful, you stop racing, and what you ask for flows more easily towards you. This isn't always automatic. If you've been conditioned to associate asking with lack or guilt, you might feel a disconnect. I want this, but I feel like I shouldn't want it. Or I'm asking, but I can't shake the worry. That's where emotional alignment work comes in. Don't force yourself to feel good when you're still carrying tension. Instead, layer the feelings, recognize the anxiety, name it, and then ask from the place under it. I notice the anxiety about visibility, and I'm choosing to ask anyway because I know that showing up helps me grow. Then add the gratitude. I'm grateful I've had the courage to ask. That layered honesty doesn't dilute the energy, it frees it. You're not pretending, you're integrating. That integration is what makes your ask feel both grounded and elevated. There's a practical micro-action here. Before each asking, put your hand on your chest, breathe slowly 3 times, and say aloud, I'm worthy of this. I'm grateful for what's already here. I'm open to receiving more. Feel those words settle, then ask. That tiny embodied ritual signals to your body and the field that the request comes from a stable internal state, not afraid desperation. Over time, that ritual rewires the trigger. Asking becomes associated with calm power, not emotional panic. Another potent amplifier is celebration of the small yeses. When a sliver of response arrives, a contact, a tiny shift, a moment of clarity, celebrate it. Don't wait for the full outcome to pour appreciation out. Say thank you. Internal acknowledgement is one thing. External acknowledgement, writing it down, sharing it with a supportive mirror, speaking it into your journal, creates a feedback cascade. That celebration sends a signal. I see you. I'm in a relationship with the flow. The field doesn't just hear requests, it hears responses. Recognizing small alignment makes the next asking easier, clearer, and richer because your system already has evidence that conversation works. That builds momentum emotionally, not just strategically. Here's an elevated insight. Feeling good about asking also includes feeling good about the version of yourself who's doing the asking. If you're constantly critiquing or minimizing your desire, I shouldn't want this. This isn't big enough. I'm not doing it right. You're compressing your frequency inward. Replace that with a kinder internal voice. I'm doing this. I'm learning. Asking is part of my growth, and I'm proud of the movement. That internal affirmation lubricates your emotional state, making the ask feel natural. When you're proud of the effort, not dependent on a perfect result, you radiate a different energy, one that invites rather than chases. There's also a strategic edge. When you feel good asking, you reduce the tightness that creates resistance. Think about any time you were in a negotiation, a pitch, a bold request while tight in the stomach. There was an edge that made the interaction stressful, performance-laden, second-guessed. Now compare that to when you approached something with relaxed confidence, enjoying the exchange even if the outcome wasn't guaranteed. Which version landed better? Which version attracted collaboration instead of pushback? The energy makes the difference. That's why mastering feeling good isn't soft. It's sharpening your edge with ease. Another layer is permission. Give yourself permission to ask big. To ask without apology. To ask knowing that your desires don't diminish anyone else's. That permission lifts a suppression. Old internal rules. I should be grateful for what I have and not ask for more. Mute the amplitude of your request. Rewrite that rule. I honor what I have, and I'm allowed to ask for expansion because it uplifts more than it takes. That rewrite doesn't require external validation. It's internal sovereignty. You become the source of your own permission, and the universe simply reflects back the clarity of that sovereignty. Now, pair that with your persistence. You'll notice when you ask consistently from a high emotional state, calm, appreciative, joyful, the resistance you used to feel when chasing softens. The field doesn't recoil from desperation because there isn't any. Your asking becomes a dance, not a wrestling match. You're not pushing. You're inviting with clarity and good feeling. That's how sustainable momentum feels. You want, you ask, you feel the alignment, you act, you celebrate, you refine, and you continue from the same energized space. Finally, guard against the temptation to over-intellectualize emotional amplification. Feeling good is not about rationalizing your way into positive emotion. It's about shifting the internal posture through small, real-time habits, breath, gratitude, honest naming, small celebration, and permission. Those habits wire your baseline toward openness. The field notices because your baseline isn't a tight coil, it's an open channel. That makes the difference between a fleeting request and a resonant, ongoing flow. Micro recap. Feeling good about asking amplifies your signal. Anchor with gratitude. Integrate tension, honestly. Celebrate small yesies. Give yourself permission. And embody ease so your request lands as attraction instead of strain. You've done the deep internal work. You've sharpened your ask, aligned your vibration, acted as if given, persisted. sat with silence, and brought ease into the request. Now it's time to get the universe's full attention, not by shouting louder, but by becoming a clean, unmistakable signal that draws focus and invites collaboration. Capturing attention from the field means combining directness, specificity, inspired action, and the paradoxical art of detachment. That blend is what turns a good ask into a magnetic one. First, directness. There's power in stating your intention with confidence and then without fluff. The universe isn't looking for polite ambiguity. It responds to the clarity that says, "This is what I want. Here's why it matters. I'm choosing to align." Directness is not aggression, it's precision. When you ask, you remove the hedging, the apologetic footnotes, the softeners that dilute your frequency. "I'd like to maybe attract more clients if it's okay" is noise. "I'm ready to attract 3 aligned paying clients this quarter, and I'm taking daily steps to make it happen" is a signal. That kind of directness compresses intention into a form the field can hold and respond to. Don't clot your ask with caveats. Speak it with the certainty of someone who sees the possibility and chooses it. Specificity builds on directness. You give the field something to mirror. A vague ask leaves the field guessing, and guessing leads to mismatched returns, half opportunities, confusing coincidences, momentum that doesn't stick. So you layer texture, amount, source, quality, timeline, context. Instead of "I want growth," you ask, "I'm choosing to grow my audience by 5,000 engaged subscribers this quarter through my weekly insight emails, and I'm committing to refining one topic each week based on feedback." That specificity feeds your subconscious and the field simultaneously. Your internal radar starts noticing pathways to that growth. External alignment begins showing up in new introductions, ideas for content, and the right people raising their hands. Then there's inspired action, asking alone without corresponding movement signals in balance, like a compass without stepping in the direction it points. When you ask, look for what the field nudges you toward and move. Inspiration is not always a thunderbolt. Sometimes it's a quiet nudge, a name that pops into your mind, a message that feels right to send, a small pivot on what you're offering. That's the field answering your ask with a pathway. Act on it. That action isn't desperation, it's partnership. You amplify your reach because you're not waiting for permission. You're following the open door. Directness plus specificity plus inspired action makes the intention visible to both you and the field. There's no confusion about your readiness. Now, here's the vital counterbalance: detachment. Oh, you want the universe's attention, but you don't want the ask to collapse into clinging. Clinging creates tension. Tension distorts frequency. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means you deliver your intention with full presence and then release the rigid grip on outcome shape, timing, and step-by-step choreography. You trust the field to respond in its wise way while staying aligned with your core desire. You ask, "I'm ready to attract aligned partnership," and you do your part with focus. Then you let the answer breathe. That space between delivery and outcome keeps your energy open, which paradoxically attracts more because you're not suffocating possibility with control. You signal seriousness and openness simultaneously, a rare combination. Attention also comes when you cultivate readiness that looks like preparation. The field sees that you're not just asking, you're staging your environment to receive. If you ask for creative breakthrough, you don't wait for inspiration to strike. You create the conditions, dedicated time, clean space, ritual to enter flow, and a feedback mechanism that demonstrates to yourself and the intelligent field that you're matched not only in desire but in capability. The universe pays attention to readiness. It mirrors momentum into opportunity. Another edge, emotional resonance layered into the ask, directness, specificity, action, and detachment sharpen your signal structurally, but the emotional tone colors it. If your directness is wrapped in desperation or your inspired action is frantic, the field senses the underlying lack and responds with blurred results. Bring calm intensity. Ask with conviction and ease. That means your tone carries the energy of someone who knows their worth and is excited, not frantic. That emotional resonance makes the signal feel attractive instead of begging. The intelligence around you wants to collaborate with grounded excitement. It doesn't move toward fear or pressure as readily. A practical method to capture attention. Combine the elements into a compact attention request. Frame it internally or aloud like this. I'm choosing to attract specific outcome because of purpose, and I'm taking inspired action while remaining open to how it arrives. Then pause and feel it. If your body tightens at because, unpack whether the purpose is personally meaningful or externally motivated. If you feel resistance at open to how it arrives, check for control creep. That short formula contains direction, clarity, action, and surrender. Repeat it often. Refine it based on feedback, and let your movement echo it. Then watch the field respond by amplifying the same frequency back. Visibility intensifies when you make your ask relational. The universe's attention often shows through people, mirrors, collaborators, connectors. When you express your intention with specificity to someone else, you're effectively amplifying the field signal through human channels. That's why telling the right person what you're asking for, if appropriate, can accelerate alignment. But do this with directness and integrity. I'm looking to collaborate with someone who shares X values to create a Y impact, and I'm starting by offering Z value in return. That kind of relational asking enlists co-creators and creates networks that carry your intention further than a solitary broadcast. Attention also comes from consistency. The field tracks patterns. If your asks are fragmented, constantly shifting, or half-hearted, it can't organize around you. But when you consistently return to the same core intention, refining it, evolving it, layering depth, you build an energetic trail. That trail reads like reliability. The field begins to anticipate your frequency and makes space for acceleration. Consistency doesn't mean rigidity. It means showing up with renewed presence, not rerouting the core every time fatigue or doubt whispers. That's how long-term attention compounds into opportunity. There's another important mechanism: contrast. You sharpen attention by showing both desire and discernment. When you ask for something, it helps to pair it with what you're not willing to compromise on. That creates a clear polarity that makes your signal easier to parse. I'm ready to attract aligned clients who pay fairly. I won't take on projects that undercut value. That contrast isn't exclusionary in a scarcity way. It's clarifying. It tells the field, this is the frequency I'm amplifying. Everything outside that bandwidth is background. Clarity in contrast reduces noise and channels more precise alignment. Finally, remember that true attention is mutual. The universe's full focus doesn't mean you're passive. You are active in the co-creation. You ask with presence, act with insight, stay open with detachment, and refine with feedback. That layered interplay makes the attention feel alive. You know it's working when the responses stop feeling like random luck and start feeling like a threaded conversation. People, circumstances, internal nudges, aligned opportunities, all echoing the original frequency back to you. Often in richer forms than you imagined because the field is collaborating, not just delivering. Micro recap. To capture the universe's full attention, combine directness, specificity, inspired action, detachment, emotional resonance, relational amplification, consistency, and contrast, creating a layered magnetic signal that invites deep alignment and collaborative response. You've built a signal that's precise. You've aligned internally, hoing. You've acted as if. You've given. You've persisted. You've sat in the silence and kept the conversation alive. Now it's time to widen the canvas. Bring heart, vision, and audacity into your asking. This is the phase where your requests stop sounding like checks on a list and start carrying flavor, depth, and resonance. Asking from the heart means you don't just want something. You connect to why you want it. Thinking big means you stop shrinking your desires to fit what seems reasonable. Creativity means you stop assuming the universe responds to linear logic and begin co-creating with possibility in unexpected forms. Together, heart and vision add soul to your signal. The heart is the difference between asking because you feel lacking and asking because you're inviting more of what's already aligned with your essence. When you ask from the heart, your words carry authenticity, the kind that trembles with vulnerability and strength at the same time. That's not soft, that's magnetic. It cuts through autopilot permission seeking and lands as real language. I'm ready to build a business that reflects my values and impacts others deeply. Not, I need more clients to feel secure. The first carries vision, the second carries scarcity. The way you frame your why becomes the emotional fuel behind your what. Michael's story lives here. He grew up with dreams shelved under practicalities, travel, transformation, a business that mattered. He started asking for small wins, limited by what he thought was reasonable, and got reasonable returns. Then something shifted. He stepped into bigger vision. Instead of asking for some growth, he asked, I'm ready to create a revolutionary business that not only thrives financially, but reshapes how people in my industry connect across cultures and contributes to global community. He didn't stop there. He asked from a place of heart. I want to build something that brings people meaning and makes space for voices that were previously invisible. That audacity scared the old part of him, but it also lit a new frequency. He began to inject creativity into his ask, inviting collaborators to dream in unconventional formats, imagining cross-border retreats not as fringe fantasy, but as feasible anchors of influence. That combination of big thinking and heartfelt purpose did something unexpected. The universe, or the responsive field, call it what you will, didn't give him the exact blueprint. It gave him aligned pieces, an unlikely partner with a shared passion for cultural exchange, an intro to a remote community that wanted to host his first experiment, and a series of conversations that sharpened the core message. His asking wasn't just one request. It was layered with vision. What would it look like if this could change thousands of lives? Then he asked smaller. Who's the first person I should talk to? What's the creative format that would make them lean in? Nabil. How can I give value before asking for a collaboration? That's heart uploads vision in motion. Big intention grounded in creative, relational steps. Asking big doesn't mean vague grandeur. It means tying your expansive vision to emotional truths and then being playful with form. You can ask to transform an industry while simultaneously asking for a small conversation that opens a door. The massive and the micro live in the same ecosystem. The creative edge is in how you phrase that interplay. Instead of, I want to change things, you ask, I'm ready to call in patterns and people to co-create a movement that simplifies complexity for emerging leaders, starting with a pilot conversation next week. That's scale and immediacy held together. That's heartfelt. Why it matters to emerging leaders. Plus vision, a movement that simplifies complexity. Plus creative scaffolding, starting with a pilot conversation. Creativity in asking also lets you step outside predictable formats. The universe has a limited bandwidth for recycled language. It leans toward freshness. So if you're used to asking the same way, email outreach, the same mental loop, the same internal story, shake it. Michael didn't just ask for a collaborator on a generic platform. He sent a bespoke, creative proposal wrapped in a short narrative of shared values, with a small gift that demonstrated he'd seen the other person's work deeply. That creative gesture wasn't fluff. It was a heart-infused signal that said, I see you. I am not just asking, I am aligning our visions. The response came not because he was louder, but because he was different, in a way that felt sincere and rich. There's an important nuance. Big vision without heart can feel hollow. Heart without vision can meander. The combination is what makes your asking heavy with purpose and light with possibility. Your vision gives direction and stretch. Your heart gives grounding and truth. When those two intersect, your requests carry a kind of narrative people. Human mirrors, circumstances, internal systems can track. The universe isn't blind to story. It responds to the coherence of a vision that is also felt. When you can say, this matters because, without needing external validation, the field amplifies that signal. That's why part of upgrading your asking is writing your because in full, not the half-justified because I should or because others do it, but the raw and compelling because if this happens, it means X for me and for others. That emotional clarity makes big requests plausible internally and externally. Playfulness opens doors here too. Heart and vision don't have to be stiff proclamations. Imagine asking the universe, what would happen if I treated this ask like a creative experiment? What bold small move could I make today that feels like a prototype of my vision? That question invites unexpected answers because it releases the pressure of perfection and invites curiosity. When you lean into experiment, your asking becomes lighter, which paradoxically makes it stronger. People who feel the pressure of a big vision without flexibility end up freezing or over-engineering. You, instead, ask with the energy of, I'm daring to try this. Here's what I'm doing. Let's see how the universe adds its part. That playful surrender compels a response because it says you're in relationship, not in demand. You also scale heart vision asking by bringing in layered storytelling. Michael didn't just say, I want impact. He layered it. Impact means cultural exchange, which starts with connection. which begins with an invitation to explore remote stories, which opens trust, which builds a movement. Each layer is a smaller ask that feeds the bigger story, and each small win fuels belief in the larger possibility. That's how the universe stitches together the improbable through coherent, emotionally charged sequences, not one-off fantasies. Another lever is letting your vision be generous. Big asking from scarcity sounds like grabbing. Big asking from heart sounds like expansion. I want to build this so we all rise. When your vision includes contribution, your signal softens tension and invites others in. That's giving baked into the heart of asking. It's easier to collaborate with someone who's asking with the underlying frequency of mutual uplift rather than extraction. That is why the giving cycle and heart plus vision are not separate. They interlock. You ask big from heart with creativity, and you give a piece ahead of the full return. That anticipatory generosity primes deeper, reciprocal alignment. Now here's your micro move. Take the goal you've been holding and make it bigger, not in vague size, but in meaning. Ask this: what's the version of this outcome that not only serves me, but contributes to others? Then rephrase your ask with that because. Add one creative twist to it, an unusual medium, a personal story, a small gift that reflects you seeing the person or opportunity deeply. Speak it out loud. Feel the expansion in your chest. Then pair it with a small step that reflects that blend, a deliberate share, a heartfelt connection, an imaginative proposal. That combination triggers a different tier of response than your previous standard ask. Micro recap. Heart and vision elevate, asking by marrying emotional depth with expansive purpose and creative form. Asking big from the heart carries authentic why layers, meaning though invites generosity, and experiments playfully so the universe responds with richer, aligned momentum. You've moved through the arc, from the initial ask to the layered practice, from clearing internal noise to acting as if, from giving and persisting to holding delayed answers with trust, from refining emotional tone to bringing heart and vision. Now it all folds into one place, integrated identity. This is where asking stops being something you do occasionally and becomes the ground you walk on. You no longer have to force yourself to remember to ask, because the asking is an expression of the version of you who lives in alignment, who carries the conversation with possibility as naturally as breathing. Integration begins with recognition. You're not a separate self that asks and another that doubts. Asking and receiving, giving and grounding, acting and being. They are all layers of the same frequency. That means your daily habits aren't add-ons or hacks. They are identity calibrators. Your morning pause isn't a ritual you perform because someone told you to. It's the moment you reinforce internally. I'm the kind of person who names desires clearly, aligns my energy, and follows through. Your small, consistent actions, checking in, refining language, giving without calculation, acting with the posture of the outcome, become the neural repetition that rewires old pathways and makes the new identity default. This integrated identity has 4 anchors: embodiment, language, rhythm, and compassion. Embodiment is how you move, the ask, the alignment, the action. They live in your gestures, your tone, your decisions. You don't toggle between asking mode and everything else mode. The clarity you bring, the openness to receive, the way you give and persist, Those are the same movements you use in relationships, work, creativity. Language is the internal script you use. You notice when sentences soften into old caveats and you adjust them, not because you're policing yourself harshly, but because the new language reflects the newly ingrained identity. Rhythm is how you maintain the conversation with the field. You ask, you observe, you adjust, you give, you persist, you rest, you recalibrate. It's not frantic. It's a steady cadence that sustains energy without burnout. Compassion is how you handle drift. When old beliefs creep back, you don't collapse. You realign. You treat missteps as data, not defects. And you stay in the loop. To live this integrated identity, you design simple systems that reinforce these anchors without overcomplication. One system could look like this. Each morning, you revisit your core, ask, short, clear, present. Check the tone in your body, and adjust any internal resistance with a quick reframe. I'm ready to receive because my desire contributes to my growth and to others. Midday, you do a microcheck. Did you act as if in one small decision? Did you give something meaningful without expectation? Did you listen for the field's subtle answers and note them? In the evening, you reflect. What shifted? What response arrived? What needed refinement? And what small gratitude can you offer to close the loop? That system doesn't require hours. It creates a woven thread where asking, alignment, action, and appreciation are seamless parts of your live-a-day. The integrated identity also handles expansion differently. When new desires surface, you don't panic or pretend you need to start over. You see them as iterations. You ask, how does this fit with who I'm becoming? You layer the new intention on top of the existing frequency. Calibrate the language to match the new stretch. Act from the updated posture, and keep the rhythm. The identity isn't brittle, it's flexible. So growth doesn't feel like threat. It feels like deepening. That's why big vision becomes sustainable. You're not chasing something outside yourself. You're evolving the version of you that naturally contains more without losing the foundation you built. There's also a quiet confidence that comes with this integration. Not the loud kind that brags, but the steady kind that doesn't need external validation to keep asking, giving, and showing up. You've internalized the feedback loop. You ask, you refine, you act, you receive, you appreciate. Do you persist? And because of that, you don't rely on one big win to feel aligned. You carry alignment as baseline. And the universe responds in proportion to that consistent frequency. That confidence protects you from the old swings. Instant elation when something lands and despair when it delays. Because your identity isn't tied to outcome. It's tied to participation. Integrated identity also recalibrates how you measure success. It's no longer only about, did I get X, but about, did I keep the conversation alive with clarity, generosity, and presence? The small micro wins. Asking again after a pause, adjusting a belief, giving without expecting, acting from as if. Those become the daily evidence of embodiment. The bigger manifestations are not proof that you're worthy. They're the ripple effects of consistent identity practice. When you tie your worth to the practice rather than the payoff, you stay grounded, curious, and aligned no matter what the external world does. One of the most potent shifts in integration is how you handle feedback from others. People used to trigger old stories. A no would sound like rejection of your worth. A delay like proof of unworthiness. Now you interpret external feedback as part of the unfolding. And you ask, what does this teach me about the ask, the alignment, the posture? Then you refine and continue. You don't feel smaller when someone doesn't mirror your vision immediately. You feel recalibrated. That doesn't mean you lower standards. It means you bring adaptability while staying rooted. That balance, steadfast core with responsive edges, is the hallmark of someone living the integrated identity of asking. To keep this identity alive, you guard your input, the voices you expose yourself to, the stories you consume, the company you keep. They all shape the frequency you broadcast. You choose narratives that reinforce possibility, not scarcity. You surround yourself with mirrors that reflect your growth, rather than only your gaps. That doesn't mean you avoid challenge. It means you select challenges that stretch in ways aligned with your vision, not chaos that derails your rhythm. And when you face setbacks, because even integrated identity doesn't mean smooth terrain, you lean into the practice faster. The pause is shorter. The audit is kinder. The recalibration is quicker because you've already built a language for it. You don't lose yourself in the derailment. You return to the thread. Ask, align, act, give, persist, feel, refine. That return path becomes your resilience. The field recognizes that resilience. It doesn't see a failure. It sees a consistent frequency that stays present and grows. So what does this look like when it's internalized? You move through days with a quiet question in the background. What's the next honest ask? How do I align more clearly? What small giving or action expands the conversation? That question isn't a nag. It's an orientation. It guides you without pressure. When someone asks what changed, you don't have to explain a technique. They feel it. Your energy carries the sentence before you speak it. That is the sovereignty of integrated asking, the ability to initiate, respond, adapt, and rest without fraying. Micro recap. Integrated identity turns asking into your operating system, embedding clarity, alignment, embodiment, rhythm, and compassionate refinement into daily structure so your desires flow from who you are, and your participation becomes both the signal and the fulfillment. Now slow down. Let the pace soften. You've carried a lot. Questions, clarifications, resets, new stories, and emerging identity. What matters most in this few moments is less about adding another move and more about settling. Breathe. Remember that all the steps, all the practices, and we're not about becoming someone else, but about remembering the part of you that was always meant to ask, receive, give, and thrive. There is a steady, quiet current beneath the noise of urgency. You don't have to rush to catch it. You've lit the conversation. That's enough to sit with for a while. Feel the subtle ripples and trust that the next gesture you make has been placed on a foundation that isn't fragile. We don't need some dramatic transformation overnight. The real work is gentle repetition, naming the desire with clarity, aligning the inner story, acting with the posture of the outcome, giving from overflow, listening, adjusting, and feeling gratitude as the echoes arrive. Each time you do that, you aren't just chasing a wish. You're deepening the relationship with possibility. The universe responds not to perfect execution, but to your consistent presence. So carry that calm confidence with you. When doubts rise, return to the breath, return to the ask, and remember, you're in conversation, you are shaping, you're becoming. Trust the unfolding. Keep asking, keep giving, keep refining, The path isn't finished, it's ongoing, and you are its steady co-creator.